Oh, wonderful. Okay, so my name is Jochen Wermuth. We just introduced ourselves already a little bit. I want to share a personal story to give you my motivation of why I became a climate impact investor, and I invite you to think about what may be your moment in life that changed you or moved you to go where we're going. So I used to walk around a lake in the Black Forest with my grandfather. My grandfather is someone I love dearly. My grandfather served for almost 12 years in the German army as an Air Force officer. And I asked my grandfather, as you may know, speaking in France, Germany attacked France in 87, in 1914, in 1938, 9, and Germany has brought many bad things to this world. And growing up in a French-German school atmosphere, I thought to my grandfather, why did you let it happen? Why did you let 9 million Jews be killed? Why did you let 33 Soviet citizens get killed? And my grandfather, who I love very much, said, you know what, I really didn't know, and I couldn't have known what was going on. And even if I had known, I could not have stopped Adolf Hitler. He was a very fierce dictator. Now, I was a small boy, very white blonde hair, and he had white hair. And we walked around that lake, and I said, well, that's fair enough. A few years later, I went through German history lessons about the euthanasia program, the good death, the benevolent death. And Adolf Hitler called that one, thank you, called that one the process whereby he took elderly men and women like my mother today with dementia, Asperger's disease, even people who lost a leg or an arm in World War I defending their country, but anyone, including so-called Aryan Germans, or as they call them today, biological Germans. We have a new fascist movement in Germany trying to kick any non-bio Germans out of the country. Now, in that euthanasia movement, people were put in the back of trucks, the exhaust was put in the back of trucks, and people were killed. Within 6 months, the German church informed all of Germany. Within 9 months, Germany had stopped Adolf Hitler. So I asked my grandfather, when it concerns yourself, your kin, you seem to have been able to find out, and you've been able to defend yourself. What do you say? And this German Air Force officer, tall and strong, who built his family, he was away in prison for years and stuck to all his values, shed one tear and said, you're right, my son or grandson. And I still love him, and I remember that tear. And I'd like you to think about what your children and grandchildren may say to you. What is it you know today? What do you know about the climate crisis? We just heard from His Imperial Royal Highness, since 1965 we know the facts. There's no way we're going to say we didn't know. And we also have to ask ourselves, who is the enemy? What is really the enemy here? It is excessive consumption. It is excessive driving fossil fuel cars. It is consuming things which mainly hurt women, by the way, and the poorest in the world. I'm here today with a badge that Desmond Tutu bestowed on me. How did Desmond Tutu meet a grandson of a German Air Force officer? I went to university in the US because under the Fulbright scholarships, my parents studied in the US. I was born in the US. I came to Brown University. And in Brown University, the students said, I do not believe racism is okay. I don't believe apartheid South Africa is okay. I believe human beings should be treated evenly. And we at the University of Brown decided we will no longer put a penny of our money into any company that does any business with South African apartheid regime. And at the time, these were 90% of the index. These were Renault, Shell, BP, Allianz, whoever you want. And Brown was among the first to do this. And Desmond Tutu came to my university and gave us our diploma and said, Life Aid was nice. Talking about how you can be nice about Africa was nice. But the day you divested is when Nelson Mandela was freed. And on that moral basis, 20 years later, we went to see Desmond Tutu and said, would you join us to build the global divest invest movement? Not a divest from apartheid South Africa, but to divest from companies that destroy this planet. And Desmond Tutu said, yes, of course, climate change is a human rights issue of our time. What moves me in life, what makes me cry in life, is when my mother, who I mentioned to you, a professor, gets discriminated because she's female. And I get upset when we hurt people for no reason. And so Desmond Tutu agreed in 2012 to join the global Divest Invest movement. We had 10 million euros committed. We approached Paris 21, COP, which was a key event in the world. And a year before we thought, what can we do? We had the Rockefeller family, the Sainsbury family, the Brenninkmeier family, Desmond Tutu, Leonardo DiCaprio, and others join us. And said, how many people can we move to join this movement? We were at 50 billion euros committed to divest. We thought in a year we can do 150 billion. And then the thing happened, which I want to share with you today, which is what I call the force is with us. What force do I mean? The market force. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, the Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, in the spring of 21, built a first power plant which today produces power, solar power, for 1 cent per kilowatt hour. 1 cent. I pay 30 cents in Berlin. 30 cents, say the Arabs? Yep. How smart is that? Not very smart. The next thing that happened is the UAE calculated at what oil price would they be sorry to have built this power plant. And it turns out at $4 a barrel is oil competitive to make power to solar. At $4. Now you know oil costs about 100. That means it's 25 times more expensive to use oil to make diesel to make power. It is crazy. And the same applies to gas and to nuclear, by the way, 35 cents per kilowatt hour versus 1 cent or 2 cents with batteries. It is nonsense. So in the spring of 21, sorry, this is not 21, this is COP in Paris was 17, I think, yeah, 2014 even, many years ago, apologies, 2014. It became clear it's not just for moral reasons we divest, it's for financial reasons. It makes no sense to invest in a new oil well in Russia for $30 a barrel, in the North Sea for $60 a barrel, or fracking in Canada for $150 a barrel. It's a waste of money. In fact, the president of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, said, this is the biggest financial threat to our system. The Lehman Brothers bubble, the mortgage bubble, was tiny compared to the bubble we have here. $23 trillion of assets about to be written off. They are stranded assets. They'll be destroyed. So we were there thinking from 50 billion we get to 150 billion on moral reasons. Now the world changed. For financial reasons, for economic reasons, we should get out of fossil fuels and into renewables. And by the time COP came, we had 3,000 billion committed to divest. Today it's over 40,000 billion, 40 trillion euros committed to divest. So the force is with us, market forces are with us. We can create a world which I'm committed to today, which I promised to my grandfather, which is I want to create a just world, and we will create a just world where never mind where you will be born tomorrow, you have a fair chance to have decentral, cheap, renewable power. That allows you to have lights on at night after 6 o'clock and teach your children. It allows you to have internet access. It allows the women to have a solar cooking stove instead of inhaling the equivalent of 40 packs of cigarettes a day just cooking for their children. This world is possible. And most importantly, as a European, ahead of the European elections, I ask you all to stand up in joining us in this election against the fascist forces. Because if we have decentralized power in the world, we'll have more democracy. And guess what? No two democracies ever went to war with each other. We wouldn't have war in Ukraine if Russia was a democracy. We wouldn't have Iran funding Hamas if there was a democracy, I would think. So we're here today at a crucial point in time. The reality is we are at 440 parts per million of CO2 emissions in the air. We need to be at 330 to survive as a species. As we speak today, my friend Wally is starving himself to death in front of the German Chancellor's office to pass this message, and hopefully we'll get it. But I'm here to talk about the force is with us and the Green Industrial Revolution. I'll do that in 3 seconds after having shared my motivation with you. Thank you. So, what is the Green Industrial Revolution? Why is this the investment opportunity of all times? How come people think of Germany? They think Energiewende, they think football, or used to think football. Let me break some news to you. The IMF, the World Bank, any economist will tell you that within the next decade, 90% of our jobs will be gone. And guess what? This means also 90% of the companies we know today will be gone. The reason I speak English today to you is why? It's because the English invented the steam engine and built the British Empire. So everybody spoke English. Now, they're a bit arrogant sometimes, apologies, and they're not bad in soccer, but when the Americans and the Russians found oil and gas, they ignored it. And the second industrial revolution, the US and the Soviet Union became global powers. Now we have the third green industrial revolution, and as you may know, the Chinese are completely dominating it. 95% of solar panels, 95% of wind panels, most batteries. If we want to defend our European values, democracy, rule of law, love thy neighbor, we're going to have to become leaders in this green industrial revolution, and we can, because we have a bunch of smart engineers, we have entrepreneurs, we have governments who get it. What is the green industrial revolution? It is the nexus of the energy transition we already heard about. Wind and solar, relatively easy. It is now so dirt cheap, it's amazing. Since COP21 in Paris, in I think 2014, it's been cheaper to make wind solar batteries than new coal power plants. Today, it is cheaper to take a fully written off coal power plant and provide base load power. I'm not talking about just wind or solar, but wind, solar, plus batteries, base load power is cheaper today than existing coal power plants. So I can replace coal power plants and save 10 gigatons of CO2. Now, the energy transition has a problem. We need storage. The good news is, in Germany, we have a word for a car called Fahrzeug, which means driving thing. But here's the news. It is not a driving thing. It is, 95% of the time, a standing thing. And as a standing electric car has an electric battery, I can use that electric battery to provide the storage for the energy system for free. Similarly, the fintech, what does that mean? It means we can earn 20,000 euro electric car can earn 1,000 euros a year today using its battery as a storage power plant. With that, the electric car can pay for itself if it's cheap enough, and I have storage for electric system. Also, fintech is key. Now, anybody walking in Africa with a mobile phone can lease a solar panel, put it on his roof or her roof, and we have a wonderful attachment there. Circular economy models help to accelerate it. AI, we have a wonderful company, Elona here, which is turning meters into intelligent human senses with AI support, allows us to move forward. And of course, the agricultural revolution is absolutely key. We move forward here. In this altogether is the green industrial revolution, which is driven by the market forces, with 90% of the companies in the Dow Jones index will disappear. At the first industrial revolution, we built the Dow Jones index. The second industrial revolution, every single company in the Dow Jones index was gone, except Western Union. Only one company from the first Dow Jones index survived the second industrial revolution. So if you want to invest your money wisely, if you want to have a retirement, don't trust any of the people telling you, be conservative, invest in conservative DAX or Dow index. You're going to lose your money. You're going to have to move into the new industrial revolution if you want to make money. Here's some examples of our portfolio companies. Here's an example of how we can do it. You all know what happened to Notre Dame. It went on fire. And I think within 24 hours, the French had donated 3 billion euros or so to fix the roof of Notre Dame. How was that possible? It was the combination of institutional investors, government, but also families that moved together and quickly put together the things. We need families to be early movers to provide the risk capital. We need governments to provide the regulation needed, and institutional investors the scale that we require. And all of that is available today. And I'm very, very happy that in the UAE again, we had the COP28 just now, which said we will triple renewables by 2030. We will double energy efficiency by 2030, and we will phase out fossil fuels. Now, my friend Wally, again, is starving himself to death in front of the German Chancellor's office, asking for recognition of the following fact. The Holocene, which was the last 10,000 years of humanity where we lived very well, was a period with plus minus 1 degrees heat differences, requires 330 or 350 parts per million, or if you like to take it in alcohol drinking terms, if you have 0.3 per mil after having a few drinks, and you're going to go home and you're going to drive your child home, would you, oh sorry, not at, you're at 0.4 per mil already, and you're going to drive your child home safely. What are you going to do? Are you going to drink another beer, or are you going to stop drinking, or are you going to drink some water to bring it down? That's what we're going to do. I believe it's doable, and I'm very glad we're here. I'm very grateful for Max to have gotten us together. I think we can do it. I know we can do it. And I invite you all to join us as investors, bringing in money, as inventors, bring in your ideas, as people, bring in your networks, and for each of you to recognize with 1 penny on your bank account, you are an impact investor. You can ask your bank to be sure that your savings account is not used for oil, gas, and coal. And if they don't give you such a green account, switch to an ethical bank that does. If you have bonds, you can choose green bonds. If you have stocks, you can sell oil, gas, and coal and go long others. If you have venture investments, you can choose new companies with climate solutions. If you have private equity scale-up, it exists. If you want to do infrastructure, wind, solar, geothermal, hydro, it exists. If you want to grow forests, as mentioned by His Imperial Royal Highness, you can have a huge difference. It costs 6 euros a ton of CO2 to raise a tree. It costs 200 euros of damage a ton of CO2, so it's doable. It's a wonderful world. As Louis Armstrong said, skies of blue, clouds of white. What a wonderful world. Thank you very much.